Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is half a story. Yeah, this film and its follow-up is what inspired the trend of splitting the last installment of the unadult book-to-movie series into 2 parts, a trend that most of us wish would die. But I can definitely see the logic in splitting Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows into 2 movies, as, like in Order of the Phoenix, a lot happens. And as the finale of the franchise, the filmmakers are obligated to do it as much justice as they can. But is the first half of this book good enough to justify being its own movie? The plot, pretty much everything goes to Shortly after escorting Harry to the Burrow, during which the Orders are ambushed by Death Eaters, the Ministry, and thus the Wizard World, rather quickly falls to Voldemort. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, though, are able to escape. Instead of returning to Hogwarts, embark on a mission to destroy the Horcruxes, which Harry discovered in the last film are the keys to keeping Voldemort alive. Try and look at this movie from a non-book reader point of view, there's so much that makes no goddamn sense, and it's just hastily rushed out. The scene at Privet Drive when Bill shows up feels like it's trying to get as much exposition as it can in under a minute. I'm Bill Weasley. You've never met or heard of me by name so far. I'm also Marion Fleur. Oh hi Fleur. Also I'm a werewolf now, but I wasn't before. Whole new characters introduced, who in the books have played minor parts up until now, like Mundungus Fletcher and Rufus Scrimgeour. This movie is definitely playing catch-up, so it can adapt the book as loyally as possible, and it shows in the setup and pacing. That being said, the story does get off to a good start, really establishing the feeling of dread for the world, and though from there on it doesn't always keep you excited, it does keep you attentive. Harry, Ron, and Hermione not returning to Hogwarts was a good decision on Rowling's part. A very unconventional move, but it does have its benefits. We are seeing more of the world, if only in snapshots, and delving deeper into its mythology. Even though the Ministry's anti-Muggle propaganda is too on the nose in its parallels to Nazi Germany, and the trials in particular reminiscent of the Red Scare, it's a very interesting thing to see. I like that Voldemort remains in the shadows even once he has power, and doesn't immediately situate himself as Minister of Magic. It shows he's at least cautious and steadily turning Wizard Britain over to his regime. Also, we learn more history in this episode. So far, mostly hints of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, but then you get the Deathly Hallows, which is a really interesting legend. It gives some more character to the world, just as stakes are being fittingly raised. Which makes up for some of the duller moments, if not some of the plot problems. Like the fact that it's never confirmed who betrayed the Order, why the tent they're staying in looks different from Goblet of Fire, and a couple of derivative ideas like the effects the Dark Lord's piece of jewelry has on people. I mean, come on. Did Harry wearing that locket around his neck feel in any way familiar?
Take it off!
No! That's my lucky precious!
Credit where credit's due, though. This is the first film in the series since Prisoner of Azkaban where Ron and Hermione are useful, and thank God. For the last 3 films, Ron and Hermione haven't contributed much to the main plot. Harry's been the sole focus. And I get this is his series, but there's something about that team effort from the early films that just feels so right, and gives the characters more reason to exist. This is the most we've seen of their relationship as a trio since that first film, and for most of the runtime, they're the only characters we see. They've certainly come a long way, though, from the sometimes painfully poor child actors of Philosopher's Stone. Radcliffe does great, as even though his characters pretty much just consider us defeating Voldemort, there's a definite weight in his shoulders, and a sense of responsibility. His best acting in this film is when he's at Godric's Hollow, looking at the graves of his parents, where he conveys all his feelings about coming home in very few words. This movie is also probably the best Rupert Grint has ever been. Not only does he have a moment early on where he challenges Harry and is actually on the right side for a change, but his abandoning Harry and Hermione is done really well. His reasons for doing so do partly make sense, and while I hate the whole love triangle implication thing, I am glad it's presented as just Ron's paranoia, rather than something that's actually there. Harry Potter hasn't quite descended to Twilight levels. His redemption by destroying the Horcrux is nice, and Grint plays his conflict very well. It's moments like these that make me wish he did more film work. Emma Watson is also quite good in how subtly she plays the pressure on Hermione, her dedication to Harry's cause, and her turmoil after Ron leaves. Yes, sometimes it is a deus ex machina that she knows exactly what to do, particularly when tending to Ron's wound, but because Watson's a good actress now, it works much better. Though these 3 still aren't the most compelling of characters, they do manage to carry the film. At times, it feels like this film is just their audition reel for future careers. But what really makes these characters work are the quiet moments. I've criticized some of the films in this series for not giving the action time to breathe, but here there are a number of small character moments that heighten the mood. Because this is only half of a larger story, the movie can afford these quells in the action. Now, are some of them just padding to lengths in the runtime? Yeah. Even some of the action-heavy moments are. But they do work to both showcase characters' personalities, while also reinforce the direness of the situation. Scenes like Harry and Hermione just dancing to a curiously non-wizard song, or walking in the breeze on a beautiful limestone cliff face. These scenes are inconsequential and some would even say throwaway, but I'm glad they're there because they make for some very poignant moments. There are other characters in this movie though, however little screen time they get. Brendan Gleeson gets one last shot as Moody before being killed off screen, which is a shame as in both the films and books I'd like to see more of Moody's heroism. Robbie Coltrane's short appearance as Haggard is sweet considering the context of why he's there for Harry. Lupin and Kingsley get an awesome standoff moment. King's amazing to have more lines than Order of the Phoenix, which is great. And Lupin's testing of Harry is really cool. Also, I guess Lupin and Tonks are together now? They hugged? Again, these are the characters I'd like to see more of. Forget Fantastic Beasts, can we have an Order spin-off? As I said earlier, Bill Weasley appears, played by Donald Gleeson before he blew up, with Clemens Posey welcomed back as Fleur. The Weasley twins get some good moments. Fred or George's diffusing attention after Moody's remark is hilarious, and you really get a feel for the price George paid. After all the setup in the last film, Ginny gets very little time with Harry, but the book didn't give her much either. I love George just brushing his teeth in the background here. Bill Nye's a bit over the top as Scrimgeour, but he's still enjoyable, though I don't get why the movie opened on a close-up of his eyes. His boat that Rock co-star Risa Fons is actually quite good, it's the ridiculously named Xenophilius Lovegood. Mundungus is fine, loaned to scenes from a British crime film. We get a very small cameo from the Dursleys, enough to see Richard Griffith's white hair on the back of Fiona Shaw's head. There is one scene they shouldn't have cut though, that acted almost as a reconciliation between Harry and Dudley. Creature, who's solely in the film series through Rowling's insistence, is just a plot device. Really, I think she overestimated his importance. On the subject, the resolution of RAB was a little disappointing, especially considering we have no idea why Sirius's brother stole the Horcrux. Creature wasn't the only house elf though. This movie brought back Dobby, and though he saves him near the end, concluding the movie on his death was one of the film's biggest mistakes. Dobby isn't the character you invest in, certainly not in the films. He shows up now out of nowhere after a 4-film absence, and we barely get to know him again before we're expected to be really moved by his death. And after that goofy chandelier bit, it's just incredibly ineffective, no matter how hard Radcliffe tries to convey his emotion. Plus, Dobby was always more than a little annoying. Honestly, Hedwig's death is more emotional. A real gut punch, considering he's been around since the beginning. What about the villains? Ralph Fiennes is only in the movie briefly, but he's charmingly malevolent in his one scene. After all he did in the last film, neither Snape nor Draco is given much to do. Draco looks like he's at Bring Your Kid to Work Day. In fact, surprisingly, Lucius Malfoy gets more spotlight, as he's clearly in over his head serving the Dark Lord. And Jason Isaacs is really good. He can play the character really well both over the top and seriously, and shows he's a very underrated talent. The snake playing Bathilda Bagshot is decent, and it's really vicious, more so than when I met her. And, okay, let's talk about Umbridge in this movie. She sucks. Umbridge worked as a villain in part because she was representing everything wrong with government denial, paranoia, and censorship. She was a third-party villain, neither pro-Harry nor pro-Voldemort, showing that the lines of good and evil aren't so thick. To make her just another pawn of Voldemort's really neuters the character and renders her far less interesting. I would go so far as to say it ruins the series' best antagonist. I can see that J.K. Rowling was trying to show she has no real loyalty, that she just allies with whoever's in charge, but it severely takes away from the kind of threat she was in Order of the Phoenix. It makes her just another evil minion, and I hate that. However, I will say, casting freaking Peter Mullen as a Death Eater was awesome. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how great it was to see John Hurt back, unfortunately as a prisoner of the Malfoys. Even worse, he's a prisoner with Luna. You've been kidnapped. Show a goddamn emotion. The visuals in this movie are half and half. On the one hand, some are absolutely incredible. The black smog descending in Lovegood's house, the escape from the Ministry, even though slow-mo is unnecessary, the chase through the tunnel, in fact, the whole escape from Privet Drive. Not only did the sequence allow for some comedy at all the faux Harrys, someone somewhere wanted to see Daniel Radcliffe in a bra. But it was really thrilling, even after they arrived at the Burrow. Which, wait a minute, wasn't destroyed in the last film? And wouldn't that be the first place the Death Eaters would look? But who cares, it's done terrifically. The cinematography is great, all the different locations the characters traverse. The Ministry is still a really impressive set, and this film gets to explore it more. Seeing Harry, Ron, and Hermione in Piccadilly Circus interacting with the Muggle world provides the series some new and interesting visuals. And the shadowy animation of the Deathly Hallows story suits it well, being cryptic and mysterious. But there are some poor effects too. I don't know how they did it, but they actually made Dobby look worse than in Chamber of Secrets. I mean, my god, look at this! It's horrible! And that's another reason why his death has no impact. The character is already so lifeless. The CG on Harry, Hermione, and Locke's vision to Ron is also pretty bad, and the polished effect isn't that great. These are the kind of things that make me long for the practical effects of the early movies. But to that, there's Dumbledore's Illuminator, which is nicely nostalgic, and I love how the other gifts have significance to each character. Harry's first snitch, and a children's book for Hermione. By the way, Scrimgeour was right with the sword, Hermione. Just because he found it doesn't mean it belongs to Harry. The ingrained problem of Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1 is that it's all setup. But admittedly, it does make you want to see the payoff. As is the case with every replica since, Part 1 isn't as good as Part 2, and because it's all setup, it often feels like an incomplete movie it is. There's really no climax, none of the arc's rays are resolved, but this film does manage to do okay in spite of that. Is the movie too long? Absolutely. At least a half hour could have been cut. Some characters are completely mishandled, and some of the CG is pretty bad. A lot of exposition, people, and story points are forcefully raised at the last minute in an attempt to be relevant. But character is what this film does best, both in terms of the main players and the actual tone. The performances, visuals, atmosphere, and of course those quiet moments really do elevate this movie above most other forced two-parters. It's not one of the greats, but it's certainly better than what I expected after Half-Blood Prince, and it does its job well, leaving the audience in eager anticipation for how the Harry Potter saga will end. And while I wait for that, I have some Horcrux destroying of my own to do. Wait a minute. Why don't he just leave it in the open like this?